everyone. Welcome to the Sharon the Red Baron show. I am Sharon, and I started this channel because when I moved to Utah, I became obsessed hearing about everyone, certain stories, and people leaving the Mormon church for all reasons. And I'm not bashing religion in general, but I find this stuff fascinating. And I think our world is going to be turning a corner in the next couple of years. So I thought I'd get the ball rolling. So I would like to introduce you to Payton with her story in leaving the Mormon church.
Hi.
Hi, Payton. And you spell
Hi.
your name the same as my daughter, how I chose it. So
Oh, yes,
it's a good
yes.
name. It's a good name and that
It
hair. Oh
is.
my gosh. So listen, I always like to start with people and asking, are you a believer in signs and synchronicities?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Do you have a quick story you can share that's just like your wow?
With like signs?
Yes.
Um,
Like connecting dots or, this happened and then that happened.
I will say I'm a huge believer, especially in signs from people who've passed on. The
Mm-hmm.
first thing that pops in my mind is we lost someone really close to us. Oh God, it's been almost 6 years now. Um, Lost someone to suicide 6 years ago, and
Sorry.
our thing was I really loved copper, and they had bought me a copper ring. They knew how much I loved copper. Um, and they leave me pennies all the time. Like not just any pennies, like
Oh,
shiny brand new
I was just
pennies.
gonna say brand new ones.
Yes, like the
Oh,
brand new ones that look just like the ring that I had. And they're always left when especially when I'm really, really struggling.
yeah,
So that's one of like the special signs that I have, but I
I
totally
love
believe in
it.
like angel numbers, all of that.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And are you finding that more and more people are totally just they're awakening, going, okay, I can't make this stuff up anymore. Where'd that come from?
Yes, yeah.
Because
And
it's really here.
yes, and I'm even seeing people like within the church start to notice stuff like that and talk about it and then like try to rationalize how
Like
it's
keep
not
asking
that.
questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, wait till you hear some of the interviews and I'll totally
Yeah.
hook you up with the link and everything. So that's what I'm talking about. It's like people are waking up within their religions, politically, just world events. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
everywhere and just it's here. It's the
Yeah.
best of time and it's the worst of time. So
Exactly.
pick 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 which side you want to be on. Right?
Yes.
So what was your experience and your aha moment in just making that final decision of just saying I'm leaving the Mormon church?
Um, it's hard to say like what the exact moment was, I guess. It kind
Mhm.
of was like a tapering away for me.
Mhm.
Um, I guess for me, the final straw was when I moved in with my boyfriend, who's now my husband,
Mhm.
and the way I was treated. That really was like
Oh,
the final straw for me. And I moved in with him and obviously like things happened and I was like I don't feel bad about this and I've been told all my life that this is bad and this is actually like the best thing that's ever happened to me.
I love how you said that because you're married now. Congratulations.
Yes.
How many years have you been married?
So we've actually only been married for a year, but we've been together for 6 and we have a 3-year-old as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
congratulations.
thanks.
And it all worked out just
It
fine, didn't
it
it?
did. Worked out
Uh-huh.
better, so
Mm. So what was attached to all that? I mean, what happened to you personally when you just are like, bye? I mean, it must have been hard, but what was it
well,
like for you in being in the Mormon church, I guess, to start with?
I mean, well, being in it, I
Did you
never
feel
really,
it? Did you feel what they were saying, or did it not really resonate?
I think that I thought that I felt it, I thought
Mhm.
that I believed. I thought I was like feeling the spirit, like they say. Um, but it's also looking back on it now and knowing how, I mean, some people get upset with saying this, but like how cult-like it is and how like brainwashy it is.
Oh
Looking
no,
back on
you're
it
not
now.
alone. All my interviews, they're like, something just isn't adding up.
But like knowing what I know now and looking back like on growing up, I'm like, yeah, no, I was convincing myself
Mhm.
that whole time because I was very much like a very good girl. I read the scriptures. I mean, I read the Book of Mormon like 3 times before I even went into Young Women's.
Mhm.
And I really thought that I believed in it, but now I'm like, no, like I was brainwashed to like make myself feel a certain way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I find that people are saying that about a lot of things in life now.
Yeah.
Um, Now, may I ask, what is your family, your parents and so forth in the Mormon church, or did you decide to do it on your own or?
So I was the first one to like really leave out of my like close family.
Mhm.
My parents are divorced, my dad is still in it, and my
Mhm.
mom is not. And then none of my siblings go. I'm the oldest of six. So
Okay,
none of us go anymore.
okay. Can I ask you, when your mom and dad got divorced, is that something that they frown upon as well, or?
That the church frowns upon?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, divorce is very hard to actually like get approved and get done. Like you can get
Did
it
you say
done.
the word approved?
Yes, because
Oh, you're killing me. You're killing me. Oh boy.
because you can get it done legally, but it actually takes like, I mean, my parents just barely got like temple divorced, like maybe a year or two ago, but they'd already been like
So you're saying
separated.
that, so I'm learning so much about your religion because I was brought up Catholic.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm doing this, because I feel like a lot of people outside of the Mormon church have a hard time understanding like these gazillion rules, but then at the same
Yeah.
time you're like, but it's religion and God loves
Yeah.
us all. And so I think a lot of people find it very confusing, including myself, if that makes sense. So you have to get approved within the temple of getting a divorce as well. Is
Yes.
that what you just said? Wow.
Yes. You have to like jump through all these hoops. So you have to go to your bishop. Well, like with them, for example, my dad was wanting to remarry his, not re, well, yes, he was getting remarried. He wanted to marry his new wife in the temple,
Mhm.
but I mean, technically you can be sealed to two women at the same time.
You can what?
So
No,
you
please,
can,
please. This is what I want my New England friends to hear about this stuff.
so men are allowed to be sealed to two women, but
Like,
women,
okay, so within the Mormon church, a guy can be married to two women, even in the modern
so
day Mormon church.
not like legally married, but like
Hold on, I'm listening. I got to turn off my fan here. This
but
is so good. I was having a
temple,
hot flash.
not legally married, but like temple sealed. So like if their wife passed away, they're allowed to be
Oh,
sealed to both of them. In this case, I don't know the logistics, but you can be sealed to two women. I think it's only if the other woman's dead, though, now that I'm thinking about it.
okay.
But he
Okay.
had to get permission to get sealed to his new wife. So that meant he had to break the seal with my mom. But then, like, they have to have, like, both bishops agreed to it. Both, obviously, my mom and my dad had to agree to it. They also couldn't get it done if they weren't, like, paying tithing or they weren't worthy. There's like so many hoops, and then you
And
have
the
to get it
tiding thing
sent.
throws me off, just gonna
Yes.
say, because I think they could solve all of Utah's problems with all their money. I don't know. If they're
I
a giving
mean,
church and they're all about giving, that's my
that's a,
personal opinion and how I look at it. Because if people really mean what they say, they'll take action. And I don't, yeah.
I mean,
So
that's a whole other like 2 hour ramble I could go on
right.
because there are so many problems that could be solved. But
I believe
um,
I believe you're right.
but with divorce, you do have to like have all these people prove it, and it goes all the way up to like the first presidency, and they have to sign off on it, and then you get a letter back saying like, oh, this was approved. Oh, it's not approved yet. Whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So if you ended up marrying some guy that ended up turning out to be psycho or just really like, wife beater or something, I mean, if you came to them and said that, are they just like, no, we'd really encourage you not to? Or really, they would
Yeah.
make you just still
Well,
try to work through something like that?
I mean, like, divorce is very not okay. I feel like things are changing because they're trying to be more like modern or whatever.
Mhm.
But typically, like from in the past, they would try to encourage you to stay. And again, even if you've left them and whatever, you still have to get approval from all these people to get your seal broken.
That
So you
I
don't get to just decide.
Okay, but the last time I checked, I don't know, I could be right, but I think we all have free will. Isn't there something that we're told we have free will?
See,
So
and
that's not free will for you in the Church
no,
of
and
Mormon.
you're taught that that's the whole reason you're here is to have free will and make choices for yourself. But that's actually not the case, like at all when it comes to
That's
church.
There's so many rules,
There's
Peyton.
so
I
many rules.
just don't I cannot wrap my head around that. It first, and I when I say this, I hope no one takes personal offense. I'm just speaking, being myself and being Catholic and coming from a whole nother area of the country, is all these rules just seem more for them and not for the individual because we're all different. We're the same, yet we have different individual characteristics and traits that need to come out. And like it's almost like all of us wanting to dress like the Kardashians, or you know what I mean, where like these
Yeah.
kids, like they want everyone to act the same, look the same, talk the same, like, and maybe I'm overstepping the boundaries a little bit, but that's what all I keep hearing through all these interviews I'm having. It's just like rules for us, and yet bishops, are caught doing very inappropriate things and bad things, and yet no one's held accountable, it seems like. I
Yep.
don't know. I don't know
Well,
about you, but that sounds like kind of like a conspiracy in itself. Rules for
I
you,
mean,
not for
yeah.
me.
It's,
Wow.
but the thing is too, is growing up in it, you literally cannot think any other way. So you think it's normal, you think it's okay because it's all you've known. And
Yeah.
they, like I said, with the whole like cult like stuff, like you are literally taught not to think outside of the box. You are taught not to question things. I mean, like a lot of these things I never really even entertained until I was a lot older, just because you're not allowed to. And they make it so that that's almost like not possible to even
Like
think
our
that way.
TV commercials today now,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Consult
Yep.
your doctor. You don't want to take something that could be bad for you. And they just kind of put the fear in you a little bit. It
Yep.
sounds, wow. Wow. So, wow. So back to you, living with your boyfriend and all that. So how were you treated on your decision, and what was it like? Girl to girl, you know what I mean? Like were the women like how were they treating
Oh,
you?
it was definitely, I definitely got a lot of shit from the women. Um,
Like what?
I mean, well, first of all, I was living in Provo in BYU housing
Uh-huh.
before I moved in with him. So I was like in the middle of Mormon town. I had
Can I just
already,
tell you, when I drove through there, I'm just going to be open to everyone. Like I have this crazy little gift, and when I go to places, I can tell if it's good or bad. I did not like it at all, and I didn't even
yeah,
know at the time that that was because I'm from New Hampshire, so I don't know this, but I'm like, ew, I don't like the feeling of this. It's exactly how I felt when I stood at the George Bush complex like 10 plus years ago, but I didn't know what I know now. Now I know why I
hmm
felt that way.
yeah.
I digress though. So you were living, okay, so you were living there.
I was living there. I'd been living there for like 4 years. It honestly was not. I mean, like, I had some good times, but honestly, it was not a good experience living there. But I had already stopped going to church for a while, before I even met him. And
Do they
I,
follow up with you when you don't show up? Do they make people reach out like, hey, where were
well,
you? We
well,
miss you,
yes,
or
and they make it very just like
uncomfortable?
more strings attached. Like, for example, I had in the place I'd lived before, the last place I lived, I was getting help from the church paying to go to therapy. Um,
Because
and
technically you were still going.
yes, but
Okay.
and even if I missed like a Sunday though, the bishop would like hang it over my head, be like, we're gonna
Oh, like
stop
a
paying
threat,
for it. Yes.
like a threat.
So,
That is a threat, by the way, in my
yes,
own
it
personal
was.
opinion. If someone does that to me, I'll be like, that's a threat.
So
Okay.
eventually, yes, that got taken away from me because I wasn't going.
Mhm.
Um, but where was I going with that?
You were living
I
there
was
and
living
then
there.
therapy. Yeah.
I was living with a bunch of my friends. All of them were still going. There had already been issues because I have tattoos. I got piercings done living with them. They would tell me stuff like, why are you trying to look like a whore? Things like that. Um,
So
but it
sorry.
was perfectly fine for their boyfriends to stay over. So let's just keep that in mind as well.
Ah, rules for you, but
Yes.
not for you. Yeah,
So
there you
the
go. So, because technically you're not supposed to have boys over if you're Mormon,
No,
right?
and especially in BYU housing. Like in BYU housing, they're not supposed to walk past the kitchen.
Mm.
So, like the way the apartments are designed, there's like a hallway with like a bunch of rooms, and there's a
Mhm.
door that is supposed to be closed, like when boys come over. They're not even supposed to like
Oh
go
my
back
gosh,
there.
it's that. That's,
Yes,
I've never heard that.
yes. BYU housing is crazy. So, but yeah, I mean, there was like a period before I had a boyfriend for like a year where all of my friends, their boyfriends basically lived there. They would be there every night. They slept in their beds. But once I got a boyfriend,
Oh,
yeah.
nothing like that girl that likes to gossip and give their advice, and then they're doing the same thing. Uh-oh, that's bad
Yep,
karma. Mm.
yep. But
Wow.
once I got one, everyone was mad that he would stay over. So we moved out.
But it was just him, though. Why, but it was okay for them, but they didn't want him to stay.
Exactly. And that was part of like
That is
what led to
just,
me moving out as well. Because it was just, I mean, that's how the church is, though. It's just everything's a double standard,
yeah.
and people will rationalize why it's okay for them, but it's not okay for you.
Yeah, bottom line is rules are rules if we're going to stick
Yep,
with the rules.
yep. But
Wow.
when we moved out
Okay.
together, I lost that whole friend group. And this was a friend
I'm
group of
sorry.
guys and girls. They all stopped talking to me, and one in particular came at me and was like, you're ruining his chance at eternal salvation. You're like just saying all these things against me,
Oh,
not getting mad at him, like you're taking away his priesthood, you're doing this and this. None like it was not treated as, oh, he's also like making it so you're not worthy. You know what I mean? It was all like on
yeah. Like, how
me.
could you do that to him?
Yeah,
Kind of a
and
thing.
not like he can make his own choices either. But
Mm. That's one
that
thing I'm
was,
finding with so many interviews now. It's just, it's like you literally, when, as a person looking from the outside, hearing these stories, that's the constant that I'm hearing is you all can't think for yourselves.
oh yeah, no.
That is the vibe. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anyone that really is, gung ho, but as an outsider, that's what I constantly hear.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, and then it's the whole everyone being in each other's business, like judging each other for the choices they make and like feeling like they have a right to comment on that. It's like, why do you think you have a right to comment on me moving in with him? It doesn't affect you at all. I don't know why you're
Yeah.
so upset about it when nothing's happening to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's how it is too. People will comment about the craziest stuff.
Wow. That just sounds like, I mean, literally, it sounds like that Mean Girls type, that's how I look at it. And what I'm
I mean,
hearing, that's like the Mean Girls, and no one likes
yeah,
a mean girl,
that's
but literally,
Utah.
dang, now I'm starting to understand. I say this so much in my interviews, but it's just, that's one thing everyone told me. They're like, oh, you better be careful when you say something like that. And oh, you can't dress that. And I'm like, but I'm not Mormon. So why do I care? Do I really
Yeah.
care? I mean, but that's how I felt when people were saying things to me. I'm like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. I don't, no disrespect, but they can do whatever they want with their religion. But who's trying to tell me, like, I mean, when I moved here, you couldn't even buy your mummy juice at the grocery store like we did back east. I mean, it's been a
No.
lot of, and I kept thinking, I'm like, well, why can't the rest of us decide? Why is it that because we're in quote unquote Mormon country, that the rest of us, if we want to have a cocktail or whatever and go to the store, I mean, but it sounds like they almost run the state.
Well, they do. Yeah, there's no separation of church and state at all. And that's a
Don't you
whole
find
other
that?
thing too.
Yeah. Do you find that interesting though? Because I believe in keeping, I don't know. I don't know. That's a tricky topic. So fast forward a little bit. So you end up getting married, and so
Well,
probably the best choice that you ever made and having your baby
I
and
mean, we did have a baby out of wedlock, which was also like a huge
uh-huh.
no-no.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't forget about all the whomever in the church though that are getting other people pregnant and stuff, but that's
right.
fine, right?
Yeah.
No big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Do you get my
did.
personality a little bit now?
Yeah.
Yeah, you hear about that stuff all the time.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay, so now you're married and you have your baby and you look
Hmm.
fantastic. I mean, you
Thanks.
seem so well, like really grounded. I mean, did you go through a lot after you finally decided to leave? Like, how long was that time period for you?
I mean, like, life definitely hasn't been easy since leaving, but I don't attribute it to that, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like growing
Okay.
up in the church, you are taught if you leave, you won't get blessings anymore, you won't be happy, you'll like
Oh
life will
my
be
gosh, that
yeah.
does not sound like a loving God to me. I'm so
No.
sorry. I mean, we're laughing, but we've been brainwashed to have that
Yeah.
uncomfortable laughter, our entertainment. But
Yeah.
that is just not, that is really creepy to hear that
Yeah,
coming from the outside.
you're
That's
literally
not
taught that
loving.
you'll be miserable
I got a
without it.
problem with that. Big time.
Yeah. But
Wow.
I mean, life happens, things get hard, but it's still been better than being in.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Um, have you met a nice group of people, just enough for you type of a thing that you can just be yourself finally?
Um, kind of. I'm gonna be honest, it is hard finding friends. Um,
I'm
at
sorry. Well,
at
you
my
have me
age,
now.
yeah, at my
Oh,
age and being amongst so many Mormons, it is hard. I mean, that is one thing that does get tricky is I don't have a community anymore. You
I'm so
automatically have that
sorry.
with church. But again, I'd rather be alone than be in this
Yeah,
like fake community.
I feel the
Um,
same way about people in general, like those girls that are like, oh my gosh. And then they'll be like, did you see what she's wearing?
exactly.
Or like, I'm like, ew,
Yep.
you're brainwashed, you're weird, get away. I don't want to be around people like you. So that's how you
Yeah.
felt too. Good for
Yes.
you.
Thanks.
Good for you. That must have been really hard though, because you look really young. So this probably, I mean,
Yeah. Well, yeah,
wow.
I basically stopped going when I was like 20. I'm now 28.
Mhm.
So it's been a minute.
Yeah. Wow. So can I ask, did you move into, how can I put this? Did you move into another religion, or were you just seeking a lot of answers? You had a lot of questions. Like, what did you come up with on your
Um,
own for thinking on your own? I like to say that.
so for a few years, I didn't really do anything. I didn't, there were things that bothered me about the church, but I honestly didn't start looking into like the history and all of that
Hmm.
until 2021.
Oh, okay.
So I just didn't have a religion. I was like, I would say I had like a toe in spirituality, but I didn't really do anything, wasn't really practicing, wasn't really like learning anything. And then
Hmm.
2021 came and I started looking into the history of the church, really dug deep into everything with like Joseph Smith. And that's when I went through like my angry phase of being really, really upset
Tell me,
just with
what were the things
everything.
that stood out for you when you dug deep?
Well, it was really, honestly, it was really painful to find out all this stuff about Joseph Smith because I mean, the church says that they don't worship Joseph Smith and whatever, but they do.
Yeah.
You grow up thinking he was this amazing man who sacrificed all this stuff, and then you
Hmm.
realize, no, he was a con man. He was a
Hmm.
pedophile, and he tricked all of these
He
people
was a
into coming
pedophile. He
across.
really was a pedophile.
Yes, I mean, he was married to like hundreds of women. He
Hundreds.
was married to little girls, like
That
12,
is messed
14.
up.
Yes,
Really.
yes.
That's
And
taking
so
advantage. I'm
it
sorry. Like
is.
if we were way back in the day and all the kids were, it was something like that, but that sounds more like kind of messed up.
It's just the whole history is so sad. And then you realize that the saints came across um the plains and they didn't really need to. I mean, they got like ostracized and kicked out because of him, and they'd also all been tricked and manipulated. So,
Hmm.
all these people died coming across, families were torn apart and they went through all this for really nothing to follow someone who'd been conning them.
That's a good way of putting it. You had a key word that you just said there too, is just tearing people apart. That's all I'm hearing about this church when I do these interviews. I'm not even kidding you. It's like they've got something down pat that they are just exiling people and making them feel, I mean, that's a real thing because
Yes.
everyone wants to have their people, and they know that if people don't have their own tribe and they're left on their own, they're either going to sink or swim. But I'm proud of people like yourselves, and you went for it and you found yourselves without even having to listen to all that bullshit in the background, like, oh, you're gonna, like, I literally, what I'm finding is so many people are starting to do their own research like you, and they're just having these feelings, and they're like, I never needed a corporate church to go to because I feel them in here. And that's actually, I mean, I was shadow banned just recently on putting a post about the Christ gene. It's actually very real and it's scientific, and it got shadow
Hmm.
banned because they don't want people to know that it's not the church that you go to, it's the church within. And when
Right.
you think about how many things and how many times we hear that saying, but no one's really practicing it at a church. So how does that work? Right?
Yeah. Everything's just a distraction, really.
Yes. So with that being said, you doing your research on Joseph Smith, can you tell me, did you do any research on Brigham?
I mean, only a little bit. I don't
Can
remember a lot of it.
can you give us a little history for our viewers, because I'm just intrigued by this stuff
History's like starting with what?
with Brigham and like how he came about and just
So Brigham Young was the prophet after Joseph Smith. So Joseph Smith died in, see, I don't even remember,
that's okay. That's okay. It's a
which is
lot of
great.
information.
He
Don't even worry
died,
about it. Everyone knows he's dead. That's all,
yeah,
right?
somewhere in the East. He got killed.
Hmm.
Um, everyone said that he was murdered, but
I
people
think he was
also
whacked. I think he was
I
whacked,
mean,
but
people never talk about how he shot at other people as well. So just
he
saying,
did what? He did
he
what?
shot at other people as well. Like he wasn't
Yeah.
just some
Isn't it
victim.
scary though to think about people were literally shooting themselves and fighting against each other with guns over a quote unquote religion? That kind of messes with my head a little bit. Like it's
See,
supposed to be loving. Why is all these guns and briberies and this and that all taking place when it's supposed to be surrounded by the love of God?
see, but that's the thing is growing up in the church, you're taught that he was killed as a martyr because of the religion, but people were actually going after him because he was marrying young girls. He was practicing polygamy. Like that's what it was. He had been conning people for, for ages. His dad was also a con man. They were both like treasure
Mm.
hunters. Like it wasn't
Hmm.
for religion. It was because of all these other things. I mean, just the pedophilia alone, you know, people
Do
would
you
want him
feel,
dead.
well, we're on that topic. Wow, that's really messed up. The topic of pedophilia, I feel like that has hit mainstream big time over the last few years, as well as
Yeah.
human trafficking. Would you
Mm-hmm.
agree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And literally, I find it interesting that people still go about their day like, doesn't bother me, so I guess I'm not going to look into it. Are you finding that it's way more it's way more bigger than what people try to make it?
Yes.
Do
Yes.
you feel that a lot of certain elites and people within, not, I'm not going to say Mormon church, but a lot of higher ups in church and elites,
Yes.
not just in companies, do you feel like a lot of them are the culprits?
Yes. And I've honestly would not be surprised if the Mormon church was involved too.
Hmm.
I it
I've
would
been
not
hearing a
shock
lot
me.
of that, actually. I've been hearing a
Yeah.
lot of that
Yes.
in a lot of private conversations. I mean, I've had interviews where people's families are the ones that are really high in the Mormon church and they're the ones that are getting molested.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little messed up. Why aren't they going to hell? Why aren't they exiled from the church? Why aren't those people the ones that are exiled from the church instead of people that want to start thinking for themselves, right? That's a good question. I want to know.
Well, and that's another deep dive. I don't know if anyone's talked to you about what is it called? The fourth anointment, I want to say.
Okay.
It's like for the elite in the church. So only
Oh, tell
select,
me. I want to hear this. What's it called again?
I'm pretty sure it's the fourth anointment. I could be wrong.
Hmm.
So basically, you go through, and I'm pretty sure this is only for men.
Of
Um,
course. Forget
yes.
women. We're not as important. We are the only procreators here and pop
Yes.
babies out of our,
Yes.
yeah. Hmm.
So like within the church, men have the priesthood. There's different levels of the priesthood.
Hmm.
And then you like go through the temple and you take out your endowments, whatever. But there's a special, and no one's ever like, I guess this could be a conspiracy theory, but
I love them because I'm finding
I
out so many of them are true because if people dive
mean,
deep, they dig enough information. It's because they're the free thinkers. They don't want people to
yep,
start thinking for
yep,
themselves.
nothing. I
Can't
hear
hide it all out there.
I know,
Just
I hear
saying.
theories and I'm like, oh, it's probably true. But it's for like the I don't know if the 70 is included in this, but like the 12, the prophet, people who they invite, who they like deem worthy. It's like this special ceremony that they do for the select in the temple. And basically, you're guaranteed a spot in the celestial kingdom.
That sounds like bribery. I thought you were
Mm.
supposed to get in through here.
But I've also heard that it's kind of like you can do anything and you're still
Oh.
obviously like murder
Oh.
would count you out, but like
Are you sure about that?
I mean that's what they say, but
I don't believe it. I'm just going with my gut. So if people want to have a problem with that, that's okay. But That's interesting. So they're protected
Yeah,
and they can do whatever they want, good or bad.
basically, yeah.
Hmm.
They just get a fast pass into the celestial kingdom. So,
So how do you think that a lot of these elites, get to bishops? I understand doing your work and your studies and all that, but what's the real deciding factor for them being in the priesthood? I'm just curious. That you know
well,
of or are aware
honestly, I think part of it has to do with how much you're paying in tithing.
of. Mm.
Like I know,
Kind of like being bought off in a way. That's kind of what it sounds like to
yes,
me. Huh, it's like
yes,
drug deals and stuff in the mafia. They go in and like, oh, if you pay me a little more, we'll make sure that this never even happened, kind of a thing, no?
exactly. Well, and
Hmm.
it's like you also, I mean, I can't help but notice, but like people who are higher up in the church and who make a lot of money, their kids go on the cooler missions and there's
Wait a
things like
minute.
that as well.
That's interesting. So these priests get paid big time money?
Well, yes, and that's something that's not talked
I
about.
did not know that. I thought that most, okay, this is a whole other chapter I have not. So I thought priests like kind of lived on site, at least in Catholic where I grew up, the priests lived on site, so to speak, or a building next to it. So I always thought that it was more or less that they live there, this is what they do, but they're getting
So,
paid big money for that?
so bishops and like
I gotta
stake
write this down.
bishops and stake presidents, from what I know, don't get paid. And then you have people who are higher up, like the 70, the 12 apostles, the prophet. I'm sure there's other men somewhere in
So they're
there.
naming themselves apostles. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, there's the 12 apostles, just like Jesus had the 12 apostles, and then there's the prophet.
This this just makes this just does not make sense to me. How can
And
people declare themselves a prophet?
well, that's
Do you get what
where
I'm saying?
I mean, so
That makes no sense to me. Don't say the word prophet. You can say something else, but why are you calling yourself a prophet? Like that's biblical. They're not biblical to me. If like you're looking at someone that does not feel biblical.
well,
Does that make sense?
oh yeah, but somehow
Mm.
that's what we have. I mean, the prophet is the one who makes all of the decisions, who talks to Jesus in the temple. Um,
But people can talk to him within as well. That's what they don't want people to know.
oh, yeah.
You get better answers when you listen within without all this distraction, I feel, but I could be
Well,
wrong.
and you're not taught that though. You're taught that you can like you can pray to them, but they don't really talk back to you. They really only talk to
That is the
the
stupidest. Okay, I'm okay. People don't get upset with me. I'm just speaking on a spiritual level. That is the dumbest thing that I've ever heard because I always get answers within when I ask. I get answers. So, right there, everyone can just shoot that theory down because that makes no sense. Wow, this
well,
gets me really worked up.
that's where the Holy Ghost comes in, and the Holy Ghost is the one who like talks to and like prompts, I guess, the more common folk. Because from what I was taught, I'm pretty sure it's only the prophet who talks to Jesus.
No,
And there's
he
like,
doesn't. What is wrong? People really believe that?
yes, yes. There's like a special room in the temple that he goes to, and apparently Jesus goes there.
Well, tell them that you need to get them on camera then.
I know.
Seriously.
I
Like
know.
if wow. You
Yeah.
are blowing my mind right now. Because I could literally name off so many people that receive messages all the time. And that's actually the truth. From what I've learned going down the rabbit hole, that's exactly what Jesus told everyone. You don't need a
Exactly.
corporate church. If anyone's making money off of my name,
Exactly. And all these people are getting paid these giant salaries, but the people in the church are told that they're doing it by volunteer, that they're not getting
okay.
paid.
So they're saying, okay, so I just want to make sure I understand. So they're getting paid big money, but they're being told not to say that they're getting paid big money.
Yes,
So do
I
they all
didn't.
live in big houses and stuff?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They
So
all
do they have jobs outside of the church?
see, and that's the other thing. All of the people who are like apostles and in the quorum, like we're talking like
I can't even stand it.
ex-pilots, ex-doctors, like it's always like people who already had really high paying jobs. And
Well, then
then,
it doesn't mean it doesn't seem as obvious if all of a sudden you have some vagabond that becomes a prophet and then he's living in a big fancy home. You can gradually.
yep,
That's a great technique they have there. That's
yep.
pretty slick.
And people have no idea that that's like where their tithing is going, is to pay these men. And then, their tithing is also invested in stocks and like all this ridiculous stuff.
R- Really? So
Yes.
they're getting kickbacks and stocks? Well, we all know that church and elites and government and all of them, they're all intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
Martha Stewart went away for trading, but you know what they're all doing on the phone? They're like,
Yep.
and it's like that guy Kramer on TV. I think about that now and I think, my gosh, what a better tool to use person to say, oh, I believe this stock's going to go big and this and that. So if you're people on the back end that are getting the kickbacks, they'll be like, this is awesome. We got all these everyday people investing in our scams and our bullshit.
Yep.
Oh
Yeah.
boy. You get what I'm talking about?
Oh
It's no
yeah.
different.
Mm-mm.
This is really creepy to me when I think about how creepy this is for
And it's
something that's
just,
supposed to be so pure.
I know, and it's just sad because they're taking money from, I mean, you
People that could
have
use it.
you have to pay tithing to be able to go to the temple. So we're talking even people in third world countries who have no money to barely even feed their families. They're paying tithing, money that could be feeding their families. They're paying this to the church so that they can go to the temple.
Okay, this is like making my heart palpitate right now because I think about that again. How could a loving church, for me, what it speaks to for me and for so many other people is if you're taking food away from people that are barely making it and you're saying you're going to shut them off, that's absolutely disgusting. That is horrific.
Yeah.
That is not a true loving God because I think people I've already interviewed, one woman had told me that she had taken herself off the record, but she was struggling so bad. And she's like, well, I paid and they're like, no. And I'm thinking, you're a quote unquote church. You're supposed to help these people that come to you, not like pick and choose. That's not what God wanted and Jesus wanted. He wants people to help each other no matter what. That's like
Yes.
common sense 101.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You go to them for help and they act like they don't have money, but it's like they have billions of dollars.
I think they probably have trillions by now when
Oh,
I think about
probably.
it.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I've been told that they have enough money they could solve world hunger.
That's
That's
what I'm
just what I've heard.
saying. So why
So,
are they not using? Okay, this is my question that I ask you and my viewers to really, really think about. We all know this world is going down the shitters. Like it's so awful. We can't even believe we're in these times. It's like you don't even want to listen. My question is if a church has that much money, one, why are they always going to other countries? And I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that they're doing things in state, but I don't know about you, but I would love to form a community that is all taken care of and start in your home state and just keep working your way out and solve all those problems. Why
right.
aren't they doing that? Don't you agree? Like there's so much
Yeah.
homelessness and I mean, this economy is awful. People literally are foreclosing on their homes. They can't afford to drive to work because of gas and inflation and all that. Like, are they doing anything for people like that?
I mean, not really. So that's the other thing that's like so it's inconsistent, and it just depends on which bishop you end up talking to, but like you can go to the bishop for help, and you can ask for help with food, you can ask for help with rent, and it's case by case. Some bishops will be kind and help, others will not. We have had to ask for help in the last year, and we were told no because we'd gotten help one time like 3 years ago.
That just makes no
So
that okay. So here's my question. So you've got these huge structures. I mean, those structures are not cheap.
I
They're
know.
not like your regular everyday building. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are things underneath their grounds and stuff, but I'm just going to leave that there. I think that every single structure, after going down the rabbit hole and people just doing their research on religion, they will find that almost every single structure that they are built upon, there's something in that area.
Yeah.
So my question is if they have all this money, let's just think like business 101. If these temples have been built, first off, they're using their own monies probably, or they're going through some bank or something, which I would have a problem with that even more, because if it's supposed to be charity and you have to go through a bank, anyhow. But my point is why? I remember this blew my mind. I remember seeing people walking around houses out here in Utah. I think it was a Sunday, maybe. Can't remember. I don't know all the rules, but I remember, and I asked the person, I'm like, who are these people going door to door? And they're like, oh, they're picking up people's tithing. I'm like, what?
Oh yeah, that's for fast offerings.
So my question to you is if they are accumulating all this money from everyone, where is that money all going? Shouldn't it be recycled nonstop into the community and the people that you are embracing in your quote unquote community? Shouldn't that be filtering and
You would
helping?
you would think
I don't get
so.
it.
And they do that like a tiny bit.
But
I
a
mean,
tiny bit. Why are they not doing it full blown? Like, I'm sorry,
I
I'm raising my voice, but that makes no sense to me. I mean, they've got
there's
so
there's so many things that they could be paying for to help people just within the church that they're not. I mean, they do have like Bishop's Storehouse, that's where you can go and get like some food if you need help with food. But that you have to jump through a bunch of hoops to get to as well.
But why do people have to jump through hoops? That's my whole point. People are just not opening their eyes to this, because we always hear this saying, one easy come, easy go. We all hit hard times. There should be absolutely no freaking reason why they can't help people that are struggling. Period.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, they circulate the money a little bit, like I said, like I know
That
each
makes me
ward
so
gets
upset.
like a small budget for like activities, and that's also where they get money to help people, but again, you go and ask for help, most of the time you're not going to get help because they're
But
like, "Oh,
that's,
we don't have that much
yes, just
money."
like what you said. That's my point. Why do they keep knowingly taking people's money, but saying they have no money?
I
That's a simple question. Why are they doing this?
I
To
don't
me, that's
know.
business 101. That's business 101.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
I
know where.
love this interview because you are just making me think of a million things.
There's so many things. It never ends.
Well, on a happier note, can I ask you what were the things that you did like about the church, or was there anything that you really liked about the church now that you look at it? Like, how do you feel about that, Pete? That was a
Honestly,
good one, huh? That's a good question.
honestly, I there was nothing I really liked about it. I didn't have a good experience growing up. Um,
I'm sorry.
I dealt with horrible young women's leaders, horrible bishopric. My ward was horrible. Um, I honestly, like, if I could go back and grow up not in the church, I would, because
I'm
there's not
so
really anything I
sorry.
got from it.
Do you feel like your childhood was kind of taken from you being part of
Yeah.
the church?
Yes.
I'm hearing that a lot from people. I am so sorry because that should be the most fun time and creative fun time in your entire life. Because as we know, as we get older, once you go to college or whatever, and then you're like, oh, gotta meet the guy, get married, have some kids. Then I have no life because I have to do everything for everyone.
Right.
Like people already know that. People aren't dumb.
Right.
So I am so sorry for you and all the ones that feel that way. That really is bullshit.
Yeah, it's really sad.
That is sad.
But
Well, if I were to ask you, what if we can leave this interview off on a note to people that might be feeling the same way or contemplating or starting to ask these questions and just things not making sense to them as well. What what words of encouragement or advice would you give to them, Payton?
to people in it or people
People contemplating leaving,
to
feeling the
be
same
with.
way, understanding how all these people I'm interviewing are feeling, because I'm telling you,
I would say, first of all, to leave because life is so much better outside of it. I wish,
mm,
like I said, I wish I hadn't been raised in it because I feel like I wouldn't have struggled as much with knowing who I was and figuring out my self-worth and my identity.
mm.
Um, it's worth it to, if anything, it's worth it to leave so your kids don't grow up that way.
If you love your
Because
kids, think about what it's
yes,
doing to them.
yes, it makes me so happy to know that, like, yes, I went through that, and yes, I wish that I didn't grow up in it, but it makes me so happy to look at my I don't wanna get emotional,
No,
but
I
it
get
makes me
it.
so happy to look at my son and be like, "You will never have to experience any of that." He doesn't even know what church is, and so
Oh,
he'll
but
be
that
able to
is
grow up.
special. You could
It's
just
so
teach them that it's
special.
in here. I mean,
Yes.
everyone overcomplicates everything. What Jesus was trying, I mean, there is, I can tell you right now, I can feel it, and I know a lot of people can feel it. Angel Studios is in Utah for a reason.
Yeah.
And that reason's going to be huge
Yeah.
in the near future. And then people are literally going to fall to their knees when they really know what happens behind a lot of those closed doors. And I'm not saying that all these people are bad. So I really want to
Right.
stress that. Um, but I've been told some creepy stories about some of these guys and how they treat women on the outside of church. And it's pretty revolting.
Yeah, it's
And there are cameras everywhere too. So that's one thing I think a lot of people, it's going to be it's going to be an exciting time, I think, because I don't think people really, we've been kind of, again, programmed to just think that these gadgets in front of us everywhere, electronic, is like normal and that they're
mhm.
not listening and that they're not watching. They all are. It's
Yeah.
totally proven.
Yeah.
So, unless they're super smart, like in the movies, and they go out in the middle of the woods and do something so no one can hear and see what they're saying. But do you get what I'm trying to say?
Mhm.
I think it's going to be amazing when they can, again, not everyone, but some of the people that have put up on pedestals and they find out the wickedness that they've been doing. I mean, I don't know about you, but any bishop in any church, because there's been quite a few cases against some of these guys, right?
Oh,
With
yeah.
the pedo. Do you, off the top of your head, do you kind of have an idea of how many there's been just in Utah?
I have no idea.
I thought it
I
was a lot, a
I
decent
do
amount.
I mean, I do know I don't know if you've heard about how bishops are taught. I mean, that's the thing, it's the bishops, it's anybody within the ward. They are taught to not actually go to, like, the police with things. They're taught to call their law firm because the church is yeah, the church has their own law firm too.
You just almost made me pee my pants.
Yeah.
Well, because then they might have connections there
See,
so
so
that things can be
yeah.
swept under the carpet. That's
Oh,
like easy.
all the time, all the time. So I
Oh, that
honestly have
makes me
no idea.
furious.
And people, I mean, and then you have issues with like at BYU with people getting kicked out of BYU for getting raped
For
because,
them getting raped
yes, because,
because it was
you know,
someone's person that was connected to them. It's just like the movies.
well, and it's like, what were you doing? And,
Did
oh,
you
well,
provoke him?
you were out past curfew, you know, so then, things are constantly getting swept under the rug. So there's the fear of getting kicked out, so then they never come forward. So I'm sure there's like millions of stories of people not even
Coming
going
forward.
to anyone about anything because they've heard of people getting kicked
Makes
out.
sense to
And
me. If they brainwash people to be so scared to even think outside the box for themselves,
yep,
can you? I can't imagine what that would feel like. I bet you there's tons and tons of women and young women everywhere throughout the world that feel that way. I can't imagine keeping that pent up.
I
And that's
know,
actually pretty sick when I think about that because these
I know.
it's
I
like
mean,
mental warfare. Here's a question. What why do they call them wards? What does a ward actually mean? Because when I think of ward, I think of homonyms and I think of psych ward. I think of like a ward as in not being a good thing. So there's a lot of duality. We might have to pick apart some of their list of keywords they use because if people need to realize people talk in code. It's
mhm,
not a joke. It's like legit government people. People can think I sound crazy all they want, but what I've learned is going through the rabbit hole. All this stuff is documented right on. That's why President Trump released a lot of files before he left, so people
yeah,
could start looking. And this stuff is like literally out in the public if people want to take the time. I mean, if they're too lazy or they just are like, oh, that's just not even a worry of mine right now. Wouldn't people want to know?
yeah. But, you ask,
Steakhouse. Think about a steakhouse. What do you think of outside of Mormon? I'm just going to ask you a quick question. What do you think of the word steakhouse outside? What's the other word that it represents outside of the Mormon religion? What is a
I mean, a
steakhouse to you?
restaurant, that's the first thing I
That
think
serves
of.
steaks, right?
Yeah.
They think they're funny.
Yeah.
You get where I'm
It's
going with this?
well, yeah, and it's funny that you ask that because that's stuff I've never even thought about. Like, I'm like, why is it
Really?
called a ward? Yes, I just haven't gone there, but yeah, why is it called a steakhouse? Why?
What other buildings did they call them? I'll write them down. I'll totally decode them all for you.
I
Can you
mean,
think of
there's
any?
there's the conference center, there's obviously temples, there's a bunch of buildings downtown. I don't remember
Buildings.
all the names. There's also other weird words like, I
Yeah, tell
mean,
me.
there's mutual, which is for the teenagers.
What does that mean?
That's when the teenagers, so when you're in young women's and young men, so that's ages 12 to 18, you go like every Wednesday or Thursday or something and you do like an activity. The
Okay.
boys usually get to do fun stuff like archery and like they go camping in the winter, and girls, you do things like learning to cook and learning to sew and learning.
Yeah. Why can't you just do what you want as a girl? I'd love to
you
learn some archery and shoot some
you can't.
guns and
And that's
stuff.
the thing. There have been issues within the church of, young women
Oh,
being like, "Oh, we want to go rock climbing with the boys." And they're like, "No, you can't." Because again, you have to get
why?
permission because the church is paying for these activities.
So sorry, but like if I'm a young, strong mom and I see my daughter has a passion to want to do that, wouldn't I want to be like, no, she's going. I'm paying my stuff. Like she's gonna do that. Thank you very much.
You're
But that's not how it works, right?
you're not allowed to, even if you wanted to be like, "Hey, I'll pay for my daughter to go." If the bishop says no, the bishop says no. That's it. They won't allow it.
That's a
Girls,
loser face thing. That's almost like saying that the kid that wants to, he has all these great potential and that's like literally taking away from the women. If they want to do something, why can't they do it?
well, because you're supposed to stay home and cook and clean and take care of babies. So that's what
There's
I
a lot of
spent,
women that don't need to actually do that per
right.
se right now. Like that's the
But
last thing. They just want to like go out and have some fun and rock climb. What's
But
wrong with
it's
that?
also like if you have spent your entire childhood only doing these things, you are more prone to then, marry, st
Yeah,
stay home with kids, have a bunch of kids, and do those things because that's all you've ever done.
that's actually kind of not that being a mom. I would never take that. I mean, I really enjoyed bringing up my girls and all that. They're all grown up. I'm not taking away from that experience, but I mean, to just hear it like that makes me think about everything just seems like it's a lie. It's like, oh, you can dream whatever you want and be whatever you want. But it almost sounds like they're like, no, this is what's expected of you. I
No,
get a
it
problem with
is.
that. I don't know. Just saying.
Well, and again, that just goes with women aren't valued the way men are, and we're just, the ones that are supposed to stay home and clean up after them and have all their babies. That's
Can I
just
tell you what I think it's really about? First off, the feminine has totally been denied, and people need to understand and start digging down why. It's not because we all know. I mean, women are brilliant. They already
right,
know we can juggle way more than a guy can.
right.
Just saying, sorry guys, but like you're great protectors and whatever. Not that a woman can't protect herself as well. But do you get where I'm going with this? Like women literally are working full time. They're the ones juggling their kids around to all their activities. They have no time to themselves, yet they're able to do your groceries, keep the house clean, and oh yeah, have babies, like
Yeah.
carry babies and all that. Like I don't know about you, but I think we're pretty badass more than men. And I think it's
Oh,
going to
yeah,
change. I think they were afraid of us because when you think about it, why did they always demean women throughout history? I get a
exactly.
problem with that. Like here people, they're all about the feminine movement and all that, and I think that's great, but like really start thinking about the feminine movement. Stop saying, "Oh, yeah, us women, we don't get paid as much." I mean, think about it. This is just like simple common sense 101. Why are men still getting paid more than women? Do I know that there are plenty of women out there that are making really good money? Correct. But most employers know there's a pay scale.
Mhm.
Explain that. Like people need to just start asking these simple questions. And
Yeah.
why were they always killing the witches, the intuitive spiritual people? And why were they, and it they're afraid of us. That's all I
They
have to say.
I 100% agree because I also think, I mean, there are able women out there too, but I think in general, if women were running things, things would be so different.
It's like a queen running everything, right?
Right.
And everyone was afraid of the queen. It's like, what's her name? Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, "Ooh, don't mess with the queen."
Yeah.
Whatever she was, just saying. But, um, well, I just want to thank you. I am just intrigued by you, and I think that you are a great representation of young women. I mean this because
Thanks.
I think too many people are just scared shitless. They don't want to be judged. They don't want to be tormented. And I'm proud of you. And I'm proud of all my other guests that just, because they are the nicest, kindest. And what I'm finding, they are the most strong people. And I think
Yes.
that's happening for a reason. I
Yes, I
think it has to
agree.
do with do you agree that it's this
Oh,
great awakening and things are getting
100%.
exposed? And I think that everyone that I've interviewed so far is going to be an amazing leader, like showing others the way. So Payton, can I ask you, are you open to sharing your email or something? Because I am very confident that down the road, when people hear your story, I mean, people like you, I'm finding that all the people I'm interviewing want to help others, and they're not here to be like, oh, go this spiritual way. They're just there to listen. They're not
Right.
like a corporate church being like, you need to do this and do that. Like they're just sharing with you things that work for them?
Right. Yeah.
So are you open to sharing an email or anything or where
Yeah.
people can find you?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. I'm gonna
Yeah.
let you say it.
Oh, it's Payton, Payton .Hathorne, which is Hathorne. There's not a W in there. So it's payton.hathorn@gmail.com.
Wonderful. And by the way, she does amazing hair. You're a hairstylist, aren't you?
Yes,
I can
yes.
tell. Oh my gosh. I wish I'm older now and I've gone through the change and all I get are these gray roots and all that. I wish I could just have a look where it's just so just saying, but we're gonna have to talk after.
Thanks. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Payton, so much for your time. I know this is gonna help many, many people down the road. And
Yeah.
I do also want to share with you, if you know of anyone now that we've interviewed, excuse me, that you feel would be comfortable and you almost feel like it would be therapy for them to kind of share their story so that others can, learn and go down the rabbit hole, so to speak, please send them my way because I'm just
Yeah.
intrigued. I'm totally intrigued because we're going to do this, girlfriend. You can already feel it, and I know you can feel it. Some
Yes.
big's coming down the pipeline for
Oh, yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And I do want to encourage people to like and subscribe. And if you know anyone that you feel could benefit from hearing other people's stories, I'm hearing someone. Do you hear someone talking on the phone with us?
Mm-mm.
That's interesting. I heard someone.
Hmm.
Yep, I hear someone. That's interesting. They're all listening to us, apparently. All right. Well, thank you so, so much, Payton. I
Thank you.
appreciate you. And please stay in touch, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Have a good night.
Okay, you too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.